Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hey, Pete.
Ethan, welcome back.
Pete, exciting episode today because we are recording on Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
May the 4th be with all of you.
Thank you. So that's fortuitous timing, although we don't have anything Star Wars related to discuss today. Instead, it is the series or the season wrap-up of Moon Knight.
Yeah, good catch there, by the way. Disney changed that last night or 2 nights ago. So that's a great catch, which means I think we might actually see a season 2.
It seems like we will, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to do a recap of the last 2 episodes? And let's find out where we ended up, and then we'll give our ratings and take it from there, yeah?
Sure. So episode 6 is relatively, while episode 5 was exposition heavy, episode 6 is relatively action heavy. You begin with back on the fields of reeds with Mark Spector. He sacrifices his afterlife and decides that he would prefer to save Steven and go back to the land of the living rather than stay, dead. Mm-hmm. He gets back to life, and while this is happening on Earth, Harrow brings back Amit, and they literally start wrecking up the place almost immediately. They destroy, they kill all the avatars of the other gods. While this is happening, Layla sneaks into that same pyramid that Harrow's in. Yep. She releases Khonshu, who, because he's now released, is able to save Mark. So he assumes the body of Mark, gets the bullets out of him, brings him back to life. Simultaneously, while the pyramid internally is falling apart because Harrow is really wrecking shit up, Layla gets protected because she accepts to becoming Tawaret's avatar, the hippo god, the god that represented by the hippo.
Yeah.
And she becomes an avatar for Tawaret, which was totally not what I was expecting, but I really liked that.
Does she not look like Falcon though?
Oh yeah,
right?
We'll get into that for sure. And then you have, as we predicted last week, you have a fight sequence between Moon Knight and Harrow. But what I thought they did really well was that it's not just Moon Knight; it's also Mr. Knight, which is Steven's version of Moon Knight.
Yep.
And it looks like they're going to lose this battle after everything that happens, but then all of a sudden, they both black out, and they wake up with Harrow practically dead and defeated in front of them. And so again, we get the second time where we think that there's a third personality. Amit/Harrow gets captured, and through some kind of ceremony, the god Amit is put into the mortal form of Harrow, and even though Mark is supposed to kill Harrow and end this cycle of violence, he because that's the deal he made with Khonshu, he backs out and says, "No way, I got you here this far. If you want to kill him, you have to do it yourself." And then he says, "Release me from my bonds." And so now we end the episode more or less with Mark Spector and Stephen Grant living with each other mentally and no longer as being Moon Knight. Cut to black, and then of course credits roll, and then in typical Marvel fashion you have an end credit sequence, and in this post credit sequence you're back in that asylum that we saw in the last 2 episodes, except this time it's not Mark who's the patient, it's actually Harrow who's the patient, and he gets taken out of the asylum and into an awaiting limo where Khonshu is waiting. And so he laughs because he doesn't think that Khonshu has it in him to kill him. And then Khonshu is the one who laughs because he lowers the partition, and lo and behold, who's there? No, none other than Mark Spector, but not as Mark Spector. Oscar Isaac is there, and he shoots Harrow, ending the thing, and we get introduced to the third personality, Jake Lockley.
Jake Lockley. Okay.
Right. So we know. So now we're in a situation where Moon Knight still exists as Oscar Isaac, but as the third personality exclusively. The first two personalities don't know about Moon Knight. This is similar to what happened in the beginning of the series when Stephen Grant didn't know about Mark Spector being Moon Knight.
So in terms of a season finale, are you satisfied with the ending? Was there enough drama? Was there enough action? Enough suspense? How do you rate the last?
I gotta say, I have to be critical, and I have to be honest with myself. And while I was really steaming towards a must subscribe to Disney Plus for this, I think I'm gonna settle down now on mooch someone's password for Moon Knight.
We need a sound effect, like a wah wah sound effect. That is dramatic, because usually Pete is the MC, or at least for the show, you have been the Moon Knight cheerleader, and I have been more of the Moon Knight. I wouldn't say realist. Yeah, critic. I've been a little bit more. My enthusiasm has tapered, and it's interesting that, when we talked about episode 5, which was, as you mentioned, exposition heavy, for me, that kind of caused me to throw in the towel. And I said, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I subscribed for.
Right.
And you were still positive on it, but now after the season finale, I have to say, in terms of a season finale, it was a pretty good season finale. It wrapped up, obviously it doesn't conclude everything, but it wrapped up a lot of loose ends and obviously set the stage for, where it's going in obviously another season. But, I thought that everything leading up to kind of like the big reveals was not really that interesting. And I was just kind of, I felt like I was going through the motions, watching another fight scene and this scene, and it was just not capturing my attention, or my imagination, to be honest.
Yeah. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about the things we liked about this episode in particular, and then the season overall.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, and then we can kind of go into the criticisms and why I've downgraded from a must subscribe to a must mooch.
Yes.
I really, really, really liked how they handled Layla.
Yeah,
I must say I'm a fan. I was convinced by by the third or fourth episode, I was convinced that Layla was going to become the new Moon Knight. I was further convinced that Layla's Moon Knight was going to be the Moon Knight that kind of transitioned into the MCU. I like that they flipped it on my head to say, hey, she's not going to be Moon Knight. We still have a third personality that we need to deal with. And we'll get to that. That's actually one of my negatives. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make her Tawaret's avatar. We're going to empower her in such a way that even though Taweret is really the goddess of, I think she said childhood or fertility and something like that. Life. I can't remember exactly. But, not someone that you would associate typically with being like a kick-ass warrior per se.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right. They even made a statement at one point. I think you remember during this fight scene. The young girl said to Layla, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?"
Egyptian superhero. And she had, and this is exactly.
And she says, "Yes."
Yes. And what's really good about this is that it's not just that, and look, I'm not trying to be one of those, I'm not trying to say that, you have to cater to certain demographics, because in fact, I'm the exact opposite. I don't like that. I don't like it when companies are very, let's say, for the sake of argument, and this is not the right word, where they're pandering and where they're pandering and where they almost attempt to, adopt a quote unquote woke agenda to pander to certain types of let's say, activists, right?
Yeah.
And that's not, but this I felt was very, very on the nose, on the point, in a genuine way, which is to say, and we addressed this earlier as well.
Well,
there
Layla
are
was
no real
Egyptian.
superheroes.
Layla was Egyptian, right? In the show,
She
they identify
Egyptian.
her as having an Egyptian passport. So the fact that, the girl said, "Are you an Egyptian superhero?" In another Marvel show or movie, that could have been more of like a lighthearted moment. But instead, Layla answered it like so resolutely and sincerely. She just said yes. And it didn't necessarily mean, is she the Captain America, Hulk, Avenger type superhero? It was just like, are you Egyptian person here to help me? And the answer was yes. And I thought that was very heartwarming part of the show.
Exactly. I thought that was so genuine. I was so impressed with that. I really liked that. And it would have been equally good if she became Moon Knight, but I think the reality is they would never let her stay with the Moon Knight moniker, right? And with that character.
Yeah.
I think what they've done is, I think they've said, hey, look, there's going to be controversy one way or another, so why don't we give you an avatar of someone else? And why don't you make that avatar your own? And I think she really did, because again, of all of them, she seems like not only the one who's most tuned in to, quote unquote, Egyptian / MENA / Arab sentimentalities, but I think she's also the most capable, right? Short of Mark Spector, I think in terms of competence as, not as, a heroine, as an archaeologist.
She has embraced,
Correct. So I think she actually shows fundamentally more competence than most of the other people in here. Yeah. And certainly not just competence in her field of expertise, but also culturally, right? It's the most culturally appropriate. Harrow isn't Egyptian. He's a white guy. And Oscar Isaacs, he's always cast as this ethnically fluid character. He's never outright pointed out as being a white actor or as a Latino actor. He's got a British
accent in this,
exactly. But I would say that he tends to lean more towards the white side than he does to definitely to at least the Arab side, certainly, right? And so I like that they leaned into that to say, hey, look, let's make you the Egyptian. I'm not saying you're the Egyptian Falcon, because yes, there was certainly a resemblance to the Falcon. But I liked what she, her outfit for the avatar, I thought was great. I thought it was, it had elements of being a protector because she was able to use her wings as like a shield, very much similar to Falcon. But I love that at the end of the wings, you actually see the two swords. And you're just like, okay, so she's not just a defender, she's someone who can really kick ass as well. And then the best part is you actually get to see her kick ass, right? She and Mark / Steven take on a battalion of troops or bad guys. And I thought it was wonderful. I thought in terms of representation, not just for women, but also for, Arabs or MENA or Egyptians, I thought this was excellent.
Do you think, I agree with everything you've said, and especially that she acted like a superhero should act, really embraced the role and took on the power and the responsibility. Contrast that with Mark and Steven. Do you think part of our frustration with this show is that we've just got these two kind of like mealy-mouthed guys who aren't really stepping up to the plate, kind of shirking their duties. Sometimes they want to be involved and sometimes they don't. And I feel like they're just kind of so wishy-washy. Has that like impacted your outlook on on Moon Knight though?
Not a little bit. And so this is now, let's talk about maybe what's the negatives, right? So what I didn't like was they teased this third personality back in episode 3.
Yeah.
Really, so halfway through the season, 3 hours of entertainment ago and like a couple days of in series time ago, they teased this third personality when Mark first gets to Egypt and he ends up killing those Egyptian boys. And doesn't know it. He thinks Steven did. He accuses Steven accuses Mark. And, as a comic, either as a comic fan or someone like me who did a little bit of research on the side, you realize, okay, there is that third personality, Jake Lockley. We knew, we talked about it. I knew there was that third personality. And I think in the comic books, he plays like a taxi driver or something like that. That's his outward personality. We knew about that. And then they teased it even more when you see the shaking sarcophagus in episode 4 or 5, whatever it was. I just thought it was a little bit of a letdown / a tease that they deal with that in the post-credit sequence, and that you see that what's effectively happened is that Khonshu has pulled out the rug underneath them and, it's kind of like, okay, I'll take away your powers from you, Mark Spector, and you, Stephen Grant. And then I haven't taken the powers away from you, Jake Lockley, because I know you are still the true killer.
Yeah, I've got two problems with that. The first is exactly what you said, which is, given everything that Khonshu has gone through, he's not able to find another avatar that he trusts and can work with. It just seems it was unstable for him when he had Mark and Steven. Now, neither of those guys wants to work with him. So you're going to take a third, assuming each personality has a third of the airtime. It just seems like, let's call it a business decision, it seems pretty stupid to have 3 employees, 2 of whom don't want to work with you, 1 of whom does. Like, how is that a good decision by Khonshu? And then my second problem is, and by all means, I'm not the guy who pleads, cultural sensitivity, but I'm starting to get a little bit squeamish about this unending focus on like dual and now tri personalities. This doesn't really seem like something that's significant mental illness here. Like, I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the idea that someone obviously has a lot of past trauma. We've seen it with their mother and their brother. And now there's an Egyptian god who's kind of taking advantage of him, saying, you do my dirty killing work. The whole thing is like, it's not really the superhero I want to get behind, Yeah,
so on that, my only rebuttal would be, first of all, they haven't glamorized the mental illness in any way, shape, or form. I think they've been very good about presenting it as it is and being very careful to present it relatively accurately.
I agree. I think they've been neutral about it. They haven't glamorized it, but
they haven't. And then
it's still there.
And the other thing is that this is good fodder for potentially a season 2. And this is where we're going to get into that. So prior to this week, episode 6 was always called the series finale, right? Which meant that, which implied that once episode 6 was done, Moon Knight is done on the small screen and we're going to move on to the big screen.
Yeah.
Right. And then 2 or 3 days ago, Disney changed on their last trailer. It said, welcome to the season finale, implying that theoretically there could be a season 2. Yep. And again, don't get me wrong. I like that I like the play, the play between Steven and Mark. I thought, for example, when you saw them talking in episode 5 in the exposition, I thought the interplay between the two of them was very heartbreaking. I thought it was very strong and nice. And then what I liked is they countered that in episode 6 by saying, hey, you know what? We're okay together now. We're 2 halves of the same coin, or 2 sides of the same coin. So you got to see that interplay and dynamic play out in the fight sequences, which I thought was excellent, right? In one scene, you see Mark Spector's Moon Knight kicking ass, and then flash back, and then you turn the camera around. All of a sudden, it's Mr. Knight with Stephen Grant's Moon Knight, and he's equally good at kicking ass, which I thought was really nice. So you get to see that dynamic there. I think that could be interesting if you add a third Moon Knight in there, right, or a third personality in there. But what I don't want to see is we spent more or less 6 episodes now of Mark and Steven getting to know of each other, fight with each other, resolve that, and then finally work together. I don't know if I'm up for seeing another season where that happens, where Mark and Steven now are learning about Jake, and then they have to learn about each other, fight with each other, and then get back to it with it, because all the tropes are going to happen. You can just imagine that Jake is going to try to leverage some kind of point of weakness between Mark and Steven, and it's just going to be a mess. It's like a weird love triangle, which we saw that happen in this season. I don't need to see another season of that.
Bad menage a trois. Yeah.
Right. And I just don't need to see another season of that.
Yeah.
And it could also be that I don't know Moon Knight's rogues gallery so well, but now that you fought the gods, and literally he fought the gods, like, who's left? Like, what do you know, what stakes are left? Like,
it's not
join
really
the MCU and move on with it.
Yeah, it's not really street crime anymore, right? I mean, you're way above that. Yeah.
Speaking of street crime, by the way, I have to say I loved the fight sequence in the bazaar area.
Yeah.
And you get to see Moon Knight flying, actually flying with his cape that's crescent moon shaped. Visual effects, 5 out of 5. Great, well done.
It's exactly what you would expect from MCU, right? I mean, from Marvel. I mean, it's very well produced. It's very, tight. The lighting is always right. It always comes off, super, super smooth. I mean, the production value, of course, is high. There's absolutely no criticism there. It's more I give a little bit of credit, because there are a lot of superheroes. The universe is getting a little bit crowded, and it's good that they tried something new. I mean, geographically, they tried something new. In terms of mythology, we've touched on this theme. They tried something new. They've added Layla, given her a prominent role. That's new. They've made, in terms of the backstory of who is Moon Knight, Stephen, Mark, Jake, that's something new. So I give them credit for not just kind of regurgitating the same old superhero story. But I have to say, even though I've just complimented that, the downside is that I signed up to watch a superhero show, and I got a lot of backstory and drama and split personality explanation and confusion. And maybe that was good if this was a drama, but I have to say it didn't really meet my expectations in terms of, the reason that I turned this on.
Look, I don't want our listeners to think that I didn't like the show. If anything, I liked it a lot. And in fact, I give Moon Knight a lot of credit for doing something and for doing things that none of the other MCUs have done, MCU shows and movies have done either at all or not as well. Again, the element of mental, well-being handled superbly, in my opinion. The element of, cultural relevance and cultural appropriateness, I think was done incredibly well here. So I just don't want them to.
But Pete, let me ask you about your level of enthusiasm for season 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say you've got nothing going on tomorrow. You've just got an order of caramel popcorn being delivered. You've got unlimited ice cold Mountain Dews ready for your consumption. And you sit down in your favorite recliner and you've only got time to watch one series.
Sure.
It's the next season of The Boys, or is it the next season of Moon Knight?
Yeah, I mean, if you put it like that, if those are my only 2 options, it'll be The Boys at the moment.
Can you think of some other things? I mean, where do you think that Moon Knight the next season falls? Because usually when a season ends, that should be when you're like, oh, that was so good. I can't wait for the next season. I can't wait for the next one, right?
And I think you nailed it. I think you've put it the problem I was having verbalizing, I think, is what you've absolutely said, nailed it right now, is the issue I think I have is that, and this is not Moon Knight's fault. This is not Disney's fault. This is maybe my own fault, right? Is I think I put these expectations that by the end of episode 6, we were going to see a full integration into the MCU, and we were going to see some kind of, let's say, transition to the big screen. Whereas this episode on its own, forget about the post-credit scene, forget about everything else, okay? The post-credit scenes are irrelevant to this discussion. There's no integration, and if there were no post-credit scene, I actually still would have been satisfied because it's like a nice one-shot story of the Moon Knight, and that's it. Game over. Moon Knight is no longer a part of the MCU. It's a super hyper-localized thing, right? Yeah. But that is not what's happened here. Yeah. So I don't know. I just feel that I feel like my expectations are, which were again my own thing, were so high that even though this episode was really good, the season as a whole hasn't met it. Again, because I'm more disappointed in the fact that, or more weary of the fact that I don't want to see a season 2 of the same thing.
In a way, I mean, this is kind of like a perverse thing to think about, but in a way, don't you kind of feel like, oh, I just wish it would have ended after one season, then I could say that I saw it. Now with a second season, you're kind of like, oh.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I mean.
You almost feel like this emotional obligation, like, well, now I've got to watch it to kind of see what happens, but I don't really want to watch it because I've got some other things to see, but like, oh, I got to watch it to see what happens.
And it's not even that I have other things to see. It's that they did such a good job of wrapping up the story.
Yeah.
Until that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And then they opened up it's kind of like, they stitched up the bag nice and sweet,
The relationship ended on a good note. We were still friends. And then
everything was great. And then it's kind of like, it's
she had
like
to send you a booty text. Yeah.
It's like leaving the elevator. It's like leaving as the elevator doors are closing. It's like turning around and saying, as you leave, and turning around and saying, by the way, I farted in there, and then walking away.
Don't look back. Don't look back.
It's anyway. Look.
Yeah.
Again,
It's a very unique criticism to television and to these types of series, but I think a lot of people understand exactly what we're talking about, which is, there's something nice about a clean ending, wash your hands of it and say, that was really fulfilling, on to the next thing. And now it's kind of like, oh, well, we're not done. I thought I kind of knew everything, but nah.
It has a real danger of wearing out its welcome in season 2 if they retread the same things. And that's it. It's the disappointment of a season finale marred by knowing that if they had ended here, it would have been perfect. Now they're kind of going too far by stretching it for another season.
Well, that also makes sense because, as you mentioned, this was so Egypt-centric. I mean, Mark was an amateur Egyptologist, right? Yep. We're dealing with Khonshu, we're dealing with Amit, so unless they're going to rehash that all again, it seems hard how they're going to jump to Southeast Asia and make this a samurai movie, or if they're going to jump to the US and make this like every other New York alien beam coming down into Chicago, or, so.
Exactly. So
let's see.
And look, and this is on us listeners. This is not a criticism directly of the MCU. It's just maybe because we don't know the comics so well.
Yeah.
But I think that if you really wanted to set up a season 2, it's not enough to show the third personality. It's like this bait and switch tactic where you teased us with this personality in 2 episodes earlier. You should have kind of threaded that plot and closed up that plot in this season. And if that required you to do 7 episodes instead of 6, I think I would have been fine with that. Honestly, I think I would have been fine with that. Yeah, but okay. Again, I like it. I thought the action sequences were excellent throughout the series. I thought the drama was even better than the action sequences, which says a lot. I thought it was, it hit all the right, it tugged at all the right emotional heartstrings. I think that, if you are someone from MENA or an Arab community, I think it'll make you proud because you get to see representation that's not pandering, that's genuine. So, I don't want to make that sound like a small thing because it's not, right? After 20 years of seeing basically British and American actors take on these roles, it's nice to see a little bit of representation from other parts of the world. So in that sense, it has a lot of things going for it, but overall, I just felt like that last post-credit scene. Yeah, and honestly, I think it comes down to that post-credit scene. If they had ignored that post-credit scene, I think, or if they had changed that post-credit scene, I think I would have kept it as a subscribe. But I must say it's a mooch.
Well, I admire your honesty because I'm sure it wasn't easy to say that after a season of being a really good cheerleader. I'm giving it a skip. And it's kind of hard for me to say that because I don't think that it's a waste of time. And I think that if anyone watched it, it wouldn't be a waste of their time. But if you don't see this, you are not going to be missing out on many inside jokes. You're not going to be missing out on cultural references. You're not going to, be missing out on something that was so groundbreaking. Apart from the cultural relevance, which was nice, that you're going to feel like you just, missed it. So, I mean, I think this is a skip. At the same time, I don't think it's a total waste of time. If you watch it, it'll be entertaining for you, but feel free to skip it and you won't be worse off.
Yep. And in defense of what Ethan just said, I will also say that it's nice, or maybe not nice, but it's one of the first few Marvel stories / characters which has no bearing on anybody else.
So
you can watch any of the other movies, and if you skip Moon Knight, you're not going to miss, there's going to be no references to Moon Knight, in my opinion, to anything that happened in this show, and vice versa. They didn't refer to anything or anyone else.
I was just going to say the vice versa. I was going to say the flip side is it's hard to watch. I mean, we're going to talk about Doctor Strange 2 tomorrow or the next day when it comes out. It's hard to watch Doctor Strange 2 without having some background of what has happened over the past 20 years. Moon Knight, you can pick it up. You don't need any background. It's just, it's like a prepackaged meal. Just grab your sandwich and fruit side and dessert and enjoy it. You don't have to worry about the preparation. You don't have to worry about the cleanup. It's just one-time consumption,
Yeah, agreed. So anyway,
Moon
that's
Knight,
my feelings.
It's over
on
until when's the next one? 2024?
What, Moon Knight?
Yeah, when's the
next? So
next?
they haven't announced anything at all at this stage. And again, Oscar Isaac had only signed on for these 6 episodes. He had not signed on for anything more than that. Maybe 23. And again, the huge caveat is we haven't seen Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to be introduced and what's not going to be introduced. My gut tells me that there is no relationship.
I agree. I mean, I'm just thinking kind of out loud, working backwards. We are in May. This has just wrapped up. They've just made the announcement, although we can assume that they've known a little bit before the announcement. I mean, I assume everyone in here has a schedule booked, for 2022. It's not like everyone just has a bunch of free time. So I'm assuming they're not going to film this until, though, at best, early 2023, maybe mid 2023. You're going to have production. You're going to have the blah-de-blah-de-blah. Yeah. I would say do not expect this before the end of 2023. Possibly beginning of 2024 wouldn't be outside the realm of reality.
Realm of the possibilities, yeah.
And maybe that's a good stuff. I mean, maybe that's a good thing. And maybe you and I will be just hungering for something then. It'll be more exciting to pick up. I think, again, our lack of enthusiasm is maybe something good for Disney, and it'll be easier for them to get us excited after time kind of, fades the memories of of this post-credit sequence that seemed to have poisoned you quite substantially.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But in any case, again, congratulations, Oscar Isaac. Congratulations to May Kalamawi. I hope I'm saying that right. And to especially a big kudos to the director, or the main director, Mohammed Diab. I think, the representation of Egypt done incredibly well. I thought it was really nice. It was all genuine, and I really appreciate that. Okay. And that's it from us.
Out with the old, in with the new. We've got to talk about Doctor Strange 2 coming up. And we've got to finish up Halo. We've got to finish up Winning Time. We've got to finish up Ambulance, Michael Bay.
Indeed. He's back after so long.
Dog. You can watch Dog.
Yeah. I saw Dog. I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I saw Dog.
Okay. So I have
Lulu.
Not many thoughts about it, but I have some thoughts on it. And I think we're also going to have another debate coming up.
Oh, Debate Club is next. Get ready, Pete. Put those boxing gloves on. Warm up those hamstrings. Let's warm up those hamstrings.
Yeah. Stretching out my calves as we speak.
Stretching out the calves. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us, Films and Stuff. We'll see you next time.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.